the midnight laundry ticket in his wallet, the night the machines learned our names. At 9:17 p.m., I went digging for a credit card he swore he'd left on the dresser and came up with a small rectangle of paper pressed flat enough to count as a decision. It was a laundry ticket, the thermal kind that keeps a faint heat until it chooses not to. In black letters it said, "The Verdant Guest Laundry." Under that, Room 1713, rush 10:30 p.m. There was a time stamp of 9:02 and a scrawl I recognized from hotel pens, and a life spent staging his own timing. M. Hale. I stood in our bedroom with his wallet open in my palm, and the rest of the house practicing its patience. The ticket smelled like starch, and the part of the night that pretends to be clean. In the oven, a cinnamon thing I'd set to warm made the kind of promised sugar always makes to people who want their small efforts to sound like a plan. The phone on the counter did not light up with apologies. It's funny how objects will refuse to be metaphors until you need them. Marcus left at 8 with the jacket that flatters him even when the day didn't. The kiss you give to a life you expect will be exactly where you put it down. Wrap toast, he said, 2 words that turned celebration into a schedule. Then a quick note session. Don't wait. He knows how to speak in calendar even when the night is not a meeting. He didn't say where his clothes were rushing to return. I slid the ticket back where I found it. Because evidence is dangerous when it's lonely, put on the quiet jacket, the one I use for outcomes, and locked the door behind me gentle, as if you can convince wood to take your side. The Verdant sits over the kind of street where the city practices reflections, brass that refuses to oxidize, plants that learn discipline. In the lobby, a pianist played the absence of blame. The concierge saw me like he sees everyone, as if my choices were a currency he was too professional to accept. I asked for the laundry room because there are lies that go farther when they are specific. Basement level, he said. Guests only. I gave him my smile that has always been good at winning permission from strangers and pressed the elevator button that believes in private chores. The laundry room at the end of the hall wore its usefulness like a secret. Rows of machines stood at attention, doors like round mouths catching their breath. The scent of detergent and steam had turned the air into a confession. A rack of finished garments waited on wheeled chrome, hung in pairs like decisions. Suit trousers with a crease you could cut a sentence on, shirts buttoned to keep their shape. I found a white dress shirt with Hale in tidy black letters near the tag, and a slip pinned to the pocket that read 1713 in the narrow confidence of the same pen that had named the wallet ticket. There's a kind of intimacy to seeing a shirt without the man it knows. It's like reading a script before the actors break it. I wasn't brave enough to ride up with the shirt in my hand. The prospect of knocking and using laundry as a password made my ribs feel like thin glass. I left the basement and let the crowded elevator deliver me to 17 with the kind of surprise only the unworried can afford. The hallway hushed my shoes, numbers lit softly on the wall like they had recommendations. I stopped 2 doors before 1713 and did what I do when I don't know what I want more, certainty or mercy. I texted him, "Tea when you get home." 3 dots appeared, vanished, returned as if courage were shy. Maybe, he wrote, "Don't wait, might go late." A heart arrived as if punctuation could be a container. The handle of 1713 clicked with that kindness metal learns when it's been paid to forgive. A rectangle of warm light widened. Marcus stepped out with his jacket off, the careful surprise of a man who's practiced not being surprising. He pulled the door closed behind him like a curtain he wasn't responsible for. He saw me in the first half-second because that's how long love takes. He took the next half-second to decide who he was going to be about it. Ari, he said, my name as a receipt tendered for keeping. Laundry runs late, I said, because humor is the leash I use on panic. The machines know more than I do tonight. He glanced at the floor the way men do when they go looking for a smaller version of themselves. He noticed the camera mounted discreetly down the hall and smiled in that tight, polite way a life teaches you. Not here, he said. Not next to numbers. There's a service terrace you can reach through the stairs. The terrace was a glass rectangle suspended over the hotel's lungs. Ductwork hummed like anxious bees. A small round table waited like a witness who had been coached to keep its mouth shut. Night air found the place where my shirt opens and stayed like it had paid for the view. He set both hands on the rail, then opened them as if he were unfolding a plan he didn't want to follow. I lied when I left, he said. It was not a performance. It was a sentence built without adjectives. Rap happened. The part where people thank each other because they want to go home happened. And then I told myself I needed half an hour with the man who has been listening to me breathe for months. Lucien, I said, and the quiet made the name precise. Names are handles. You hold one when the room tilts. Sound, he nodded. He hears me when I turn myself down. Are you sleeping with him? There isn't a scenic route around that cliff. You either jump or take it with you like furniture. Not yet, he said, quick and clean. Then quieter, the particular honesty that knows which muscle will bruise. I brought my mouth. A gust threaded itself into the space between us and made the thin hair on my forearm learn a lesson I didn't want. The city below pretended not to be nosy. Somewhere behind the glass, a door closed and added itself to the night's ledger. You love being wanted for the version of you nobody else has certified, I said. I didn't make it cruel. I made it accurate. And I am most myself when I believe I can coach you away from rooms that think mirrors are proof. He laughed once, which is the noise a man makes when he recognizes the shape of a cage and remembers who built it. You always did like to referee, he said. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm saying it isn't working as well as we thought. What do you want? I asked. Now, not tomorrow. Not the apology drafted for daylight. What do you want me to do with your mouth and your shirt in the room behind that door? He took one step closer. I could smell soap and the faint, heat-sweet trace of a dessert he hadn't finished. His breath touched the place where words choose whether to be brave or stay unspoken. I want to come home, he said, and my name sounded like permission. I want you to pull me out of here and use me in the kitchen where guilt can't pretend to be housekeeping. I want to be wanted where the forecast is ordinary. I reached up and put my thumb in the dip of his lower lip, not to silence him, just to insist that this sentence belonged to both of us. He exhaled in the shape of my name. Heat found its own momentum, and my body believed in gravity for a living second with no committee involved. Come home, I said. We will argue in daylight. Tonight I'm going to teach your mouth a better use of time. He nodded quick, almost unhandsome with relief, and stepped into me so fast the metal rail measured his hips and left a private half-moon for later. I pulled him to me with the care you reserve for antiques and newborn promises. His mouth opened not with hunger but with recognition, which is its own kind of ache. I kissed him slow and exact because restraint stops being noble only after you forget what it's good for. He tasted like the hotel's sugar, and the person I fell in love with when neither of us had a pass to nicer elevators. His hands found my waist with the kind of caution that says yes on purpose. I slid my palm under his shirt to the heat of the small of his back. His body keeps its best arguments there. He made that small sound he makes when he's surprised by tenderness, which is a sound I've never learned to be casual about. The terrace glass threw our shapes at us, and they looked thinner than truth. I used my mouth to correct the record. We didn't undress. We didn't take anything away from the room that the housekeeping staff would have to forgive. We borrowed heat and returned it carefully. His teeth grazed my throat exactly once. I pressed him gently into the rail and wrote his name on my own breath. He answered with pressure, the kind you feel the next day and file under evidence without needing a court. We stopped because it would have been too easy to continue. He leaned his forehead to mine and laughed, a shaken little sound that had the shape of a kiss and the taste of apology. We left the terrace without looking back at the door. In the elevator, a woman in perfume and diamonds examined herself and decided to approve. In the lobby, the pianist found a new chord for people choosing continuity. The concierge counted nobody. At home, the cinnamon had waited with the kind of loyalty that embarrasses me. I cut it in half with a butter knife, and we ate with our fingers because forks would have lied. He watched my mouth with the orchestral attention that makes me forgive the day's grammar. I put my hand at the back of his neck and brought him to me again for a kiss that was thick enough to count and thin enough to save the right surprises for later. The apartment remembered how to be the correct size for both of us. We went to bed with names we didn't say out loud folded into our mouths for morning. I do not know a cleaner phrase than we were careful. We were careful, and in that carefulness, there was a heat I wish I knew how to choreograph for strangers. He knows exactly where to put his palm on my ribs to make me turn into him without arguing. I know exactly where his shoulder lives when he wants to avoid confessing, and I know how to coax it. We practice not turning the room into evidence. We practice the kind of coincidence that doesn't ask for the night's blessing. Morning pulled its light across the blinds as if the city had learned landscape painting. He made coffee. I opened the windows to draft in whatever the day believes about mercy. The laundry ticket sat on the table like a small flag that had decided it liked my country better. He reached for it and paused, two fingers hovering as if this, too, required a ritual. "I'll tell you everything," he said. "Not the version I can live with, the version you can." "Later," I said. "After we go to the canal and let the water lie about Paris. After we remember we like the same bakery and the same stupid bench and pigeons that think there are rules. After we earn a fight." We did those things. At the bench, he tried the rehearsed sentences first, then ran out of script and did something better. He reached for my wrist and squeezed once. He told me that he is tired of being interesting on cue and wanted to be wanted the way dumb teenagers are wanted when nobody is gratting. He told me he thought about my mouth in a room where mouth was the only government available. He told me he was sorry without turning it into debt. I didn't forgive him right then. Daylight is expensive and we are not rich. I took his hand and called it a partial payment. He nodded like a man who understands interest. 2 days later, I saw Lucien in a lobby that smelled like ambition and lemon. He gave me the nod men give when they have chosen to be furniture on purpose. He didn't apologize, and I didn't deputize. We shared an elevator that wrote our names backward and delivered us to separate floors. We are not better men because of this. We are more legible to ourselves, which is riskier and more useful. I don't trust laundry tickets and hotel pencils and sudden notifications that pretend convenience is compassion. But I trust the way his mouth changes when he remembers he belongs in our kitchen and not in rooms that keep their mirrors too clean. I trust the sound my own breath makes when it learns patience midway through a kiss and decides to keep the skill. If a washing machine ever hums my name again from a basement where other people steam their decisions, I will do what I did that night. I will walk toward the thing that thinks it knows me. I will put my mouth on the man I keep and let our bodies teach the room better grammar. I will decide, with him, and in a place where cinnamon pretends to be strategy, whether forgiveness is a word for daylight or a habit you can learn in a hallway without witnesses. And I will hold a small rectangle of paper that tried to be evidence and fold it once, cleanly, into a shape our drawer understands. Not a proof of anything, just a reminder that doors, even expensive ones, are only interesting when they learn to open from the inside.